Hello, this is Jungle Jim, theologian. Jungle Jim at your service. I was recently asked, Jungle Jim, at that highest of higher learning institutes, Mount Everest University, did they ever try ice hockey? Now, for those of you who don't know the backstory, let me explain a little bit. I have attended the many a higher institute of learning, and of course the highest of all of them being Mount Everest University. And as you can imagine, when your university is on the side of the world's tallest mountain, you can't exactly find flat places on which to build places for sport. But we built them anyway, and normally the sports would start out okay, but then it was all downhill from there. Literally. And so, yes, indeed, we did try ice hockey at Mount Everest University. It made sense, cold weather sport. We are the ultimate in cold weather. But having failed at past attempts at sport, we really wanted to get it right this time. So we called together the scientists, the engineers, architects, anyone we thought would be involved in the project. And we said, okay, look, we've tried sports at Mount Everest University, and they've never gone well because we've always failed to take into account the gravity of the situation. Again, literally. So we want to try ice hockey. Do you think it's possible? And so they said, oh, yes. We do believe we can do this, yes. And in fact, they were very excited about the project. And so it was funded, and they did the whole thing. So many months later, we had the Mount Everest University ice hockey rink. It was the most unique rink you'd ever seen. In fact, it was the most unique rink anyone had ever seen because it was slanted. And you could tell that they had put a lot of thought into how gravity would affect the puck on the different ends of the rink. For example, if you looked at the upper end, the goal was quite normal. But on the lower end, the netting had been replaced by a solid steel chain. And that wasn't the only thing that was solid steel. The walls around the lower end were solid steel. Padded, of course. You can't have people checking one another into solid steel. Oh, my goodness. But yes, they were quite sturdy, to say the least. But on the upper end, the walls were made of, let's see, what was it? Oh, yes, cardboard. So on the lower end, the glass through which one would view the game was cannonball-proof. Or cannonball-proof. Jungle Jim, don't you mean bulletproof? No, I mean cannonball-proof. We had scientists actually go out onto the rink to prove it. They took a cannon out there, fired it, and that cannonball bounced around like it was in a pinball machine. All I can say is thank God our scientists are like good politicians at a press conference, great at ducking. Otherwise, someone was going to get hurt. Let me tell you that. So, yes, but on the upper end, they didn't even bother to put glass. So we wanted to have a grand opening. Didn't even want to practice on it first, have a grand opening. And we thought, well, now what better way to have a grand opening than to have an exhibition game? So that's exactly what we set out to do. We invited a team from China, the Chinese Checkers. They came, and they were excited to help us with this, and so they got ready for the exhibition game. The Mount Everest University Gaspers, they got ready. And then they sounded the horn for the teams to come out to warm up. And after we had cleaned up from the subsequent avalanche, that's exactly what they did. Each team came out. The doors were somewhere toward the middle of the rink. They came out from opposite sides, and then all gravity broke loose. As soon as the hockey players got out onto the rink, they all slid to the bottom. hockey players bumbling and fumbling over one another, trying to get back to the doors that they came in. And finally they gave up. They just climbed over the cannonball-proof glass, which, considering the angle it was at, wasn't all that difficult to do. So we immediately called everyone who had been on the project, and we said, look, we're trying to, you said we could do this, and they can't skate on this, and we're trying to have a grand opening exhibition game. What are we going to do? And they said, calm down. We'll think of something. We'll think of something. Give us a few hours. And so since it was about noon, we said, okay, we'll give you a few hours. We'll try it again this evening. So evening came, and this time they sounded, it was like a little tweet, just a toot, just to let the players know, okay, you can come out and warm up now. We learned the horn was a little bit overkill, shall we say. Not that anyone was killed in the first avalanche, but, I digress. So they came out, and instead of having the normal hockey sticks, they were carrying modified pickaxes. This actually enabled them to get around the rink and stay where they wanted to stay, get where they wanted to go, and it seemed rather brilliant. In fact, we were so enamored with them, we quickly dubbed them hockey picks. And so the refs came out. They had been given hockey picks as well, so that, they could get around the rink and not just slide to the bottom. And so the game began. The main referee came out to the middle of the rink. The Gaspers, we were facing down. Our goal was on the downhill side. The Chinese checkers on the upper end. And so the ref called together, the Chinese checker and the Gasper, and, he does whatever he does, tells them, hey, I'm about to drop this puck, and when I do, swing at it. I guess that's what they say. And so that's what he did to start the game. He dropped the puck, and by the time that the players lifted their pickaxes off the ice to swing at the puck, it was gone. Gravity had taken hold of it, and it was sliding as fast as it could downhill toward the Chinese checkers goalie. Now, one of the Chinese checkers, seeing the puck, he tried to take a swing at it so it would go back up the rink. But he slipped, lost his balance, fell backwards, and the hockey pick came flying out of his hand, going toward the goalie. The goalie, seeing the hockey puck heading his way, and the hockey pick flying through the air heading his way, decided, for some strange reason, that between the two the hockey puck was no longer important. And so he dove out of the way. And we scored on the play. The puck slid into our goal, and it was Mount Everest University 1, Chinese checkers 0. It was the only score of the game. For you see, as soon as the players realized that they were swinging modified pickaxes at one another, no one really wanted to go after the puck. And so it ended up being rather boring. And thus ended the Mount Everest University attempt at ice hockey. I will say that it's the only university that I know of, I think in all of the world, whose hockey team retired undefeated. But alas, that's the only game we could play. But I didn't come here to tell you all that. I came here to continue stories from the Bible, in particular that of the Old Testament. And I want to pick up from where I left off, the story about hockey. And as far as the Bible is concerned, I want to pick up also from where I left off, which was the Old Testament story of Noah. Remember The Bible has the Old Testament about stories that before the coming of Jesus, Son of God, and the New Testament, the stories about his coming and things that happened thereafter thereof. So, if you remember in my last recording, if you've heard it, I told the story of how God looked at his work of art, his decimated, desecrated, something created, his messed up work of art, and decided he had to start all over, because mankind had become the exact opposite of what he wanted them to be. He created us to be good and righteous, and we had become totally evil. So, except for Noah and his wife, his 3 sons, their 3 wives, God saved them and preserved the land animals by having Noah build a giant boat, the ark. They got on, and then, boom, the flood came and God saved them. Now, hundreds of years later, mankind had done a great job in repopulating lots of the earth. And God, who searches the hearts of mankind, his eyes roam to and fro throughout the earth, found a man of great faith. Now, what is faith? Faith, I like to think of it as, this is Jungle Jim definition, not exactly Mr. Webster's. Faith is belief and trust, all rolled into one, kind of like a baby eating spaghetti. So he was a man of great faith, and his name was Abram. His wife's name was Sarai, or Sarai, as in Sarah, I can't pronounce your name. Sarai. So, but fortunately, later on, God changes their name. He changes Sarai's name to Sarah, and Abram's name he changed to Abraham, which I always thought to be rather strange, because at least as far as his descendants were concerned, and probably for Abram himself, Ham was considered unclean. Pigs are an unclean animal. Weren't supposed to eat pig meat. So you would think that God would name him after something he could eat. Abram beef, Abram mutton, Abram fish, but instead he named him Abraham, I guess to remind him, hey, don't eat ham, which, was probably seemed rather cruel to poor old Abraham at the time. Someone would say, hey, Abraham! And he'd be like, oh, I'm so hungry. Why did you do that? Why did you remind me about ham? I can't eat ham. It's unclean. Not supposed to eat that. Why'd you do that? Call me Abram. They did that for a long, long time, So I don't know. I don't know why God called him Abraham, but that's what he changed his name to. But that's much later in the story. When God first came to him, his name was Abram. And he said, I want you to get you, your wife, your servants. Now understand, he didn't have any children at the time. I want you to get everything you have, and I want you to move to the land that I will show you. I will make you a great nation, and in you all the families of the earth shall be blessed. Now, this meant, with God saying, move to the land I will show you, that Abram didn't know where God wanted him to end up. But this didn't bother Abram. He trusted God. The people at the U-Haul, however, where Abram went to rent the camels, they were quite upset about this. They said, you've got to tell us where you're going. When are you going to get there? When are you going to turn in these camels? We're trying to run a business here. But they must have worked out something, because Abram was indeed able to make the move. This, however, did cause many a stressful conversation on the road. Abram would be on his camel, his wife Sarai next to him, and Abram had that look of confusion. We men get on our faces we're traveling, and Sarai would be like, "Oh, I know that look. You're lost. You're lost again. How many times have I told you need to pull over and ask directions?" And of course he'd be saying, "Well, how can I ask directions? God didn't tell me where I'm going." And Sarai would, "Oh, fine, yes, like that's an excuse. Yeah, well, yeah, you just need to drop that pride of yours and pull over and ask directions." And so it was very stressful. Very stressful. But they did end up where God wanted them to be, thanks to their GPS, God positioning system, which the place they ended up being was the land of Canaan. Now, Canaan, excuse me a moment, got some air trapped in there. Yes, all right, yes. Canaan comprised the eastern border of the Mediterranean Sea for all practical intents and purposes. Modern-day Israel, Syria, that whole region of the earth. And after Abram arrived, God said, "To your descendants I will give this land." So that was a major promise God made to Abram. Now, at that time, Abram, when God first told him this, hey, get up and move, he was 75 years old. His wife Sarai, 65 years old. And God's saying, "I'm going to give this to your descendants." Now, many years later, God comes back to Abram. And he says, "Abram, I'm your shield, your exceedingly great reward." Now, Abram, let me back up just for a second. I've mentioned this before. In the Bible, there's many conversations. And I'm convinced that in most conversations, we don't have every word that was said. We've got the most important parts, the most important sentences. So I am going to use my Jungle Gym insight to try and share with you what this conversation was most likely like. Now, I understand, of course, that, this is just Jungle Gym theory. This is Genesis chapter 15 to which I'm referring, if you want to read exactly what is there. But God appeared to Abram. He said, "I'm your shield, your exceeding great reward." And Abram's response was basically, God, I appreciate this. This is wonderful. Thank you for your blessings. But it seems, and, please don't take offense at this. You take care of the entire universe. But it seems there have been a minor oversight. I have no children. But God, he wanted to reassure Abram. And so, he took him outside. He said, "Look toward the heavens, count the stars. So shall your descendants be." And Abram believed God. And the Bible says it was credited to him as righteousness. In other words, as far as God was concerned, that's righteousness right there. I told him his descendants are going to be, this is an old man, his wife is old, and he believed me, he trusted me. That's righteousness as far as God was concerned. So, fast forward how many years, I don't know. Except that now Abram is 85 years old. So for 10 years, Abram and Sarai have been waiting to have children. Sarai is now 75. And so finally Sarai decided, that what we humans often decide is that God needs a little help. He's a busy God, got lots to do. And sometimes, his plans don't seem very logical. And so Sarai decided, okay, I've had enough. Let me help God out here. So she goes to Abram, and she says, Abram, look, I'm tired of waiting. I think I've got a plan here. I want you to take Hagar, my maidservant, as your wife, and she will have a child in my name, on my behalf. In other words, Hagar would serve somewhat like a surrogate mother, if you will, for Sarai. So Abram looked at his 75-year-old wife, looked at her much younger maidservant, looked back at his 75-year-old wife, and said, well, a man's got to do what a man's got to do. So Abram took Hagar to be his wife. So Hagar became pregnant, and when she saw she was pregnant, she despised her mistress, her master, Sarai, because she felt like she was being used, which, coincidentally enough, she was. So that probably contributed to the feeling of being used. And so Sarai, seeing how despised she was by Hagar, was very upset about this. She went to Abram, and she said, this is all your fault. Abram, of course, reacted as any husband would. What? Because meantime, as he was doing in the back of his mind, he's going, okay, my wife came to me, and she said to do something, and I did what she told me to do, and now she's mad at me for doing what she asked me to do. How do I win this situation? But yes, Sarai said, I gave my maidservant to you as wife, and now that she's pregnant, she despises me. And so Abram did what also many a man would do in such a situation. He wiggled his way out of it, wormed his way out as fast as he possibly could. His response, well, she's your servant, do with her as you please. And by all means, leave me out of this. Of course, the last part was more under his breath. And so that's what Sarai did. She went out and she was cruel to Hagar, gave her extra chores, made her do all sorts of crazy things, dirty jobs and such, and to the point that Hagar, she ran away. She ran away. But an angel appeared to Hagar. And she said, the angel said, return to your mistress and submit to her. You are with child, and you shall bear a son. You shall call his name Ishmael. Now, see, that was because she was going to have a son. If she was going to have a daughter, she would have been named Ishmael. But it was a son, so they named him. He was to be named Ishmael. And the angel tried to comfort her and said, look, it's going to get better. It's going to be okay. You're going to have a son. God's going to bless him. And listen, God's going to change Sarai's name. It's going to get easier to pronounce, okay? So things are going to get better. So Hagar, she, listened, and she obeyed, and she went back and submitted herself to Sarai. And eventually, when Abram was 86 years old, she gave birth to Ishmael. Now fast forward another 13 years. Abram's now 99 years old. Sarah, 89 years old. 89. And, 89, 90 years old, right in there. And God appears again. So they've been waiting to have descendants for 24 years. And God shows up. And he changes their names finally. You know what he said? Now it's Abraham, and your name is going to be Sarah. And then God asked Abram to do something. And of course, Abraham, he's in a great mood. He said, oh, sure, God, whatever you need. I love you, I trust you, and I'm especially thankful you finally changed my wife's name. I'm very happy about this. So please, whatever you need. And he said, I want you to be circumcised. God who made the heavens and earth in 7 days say, what? Yes, Abram, I want you to be circumcised. Now, God, cut that out. I didn't mean that. I mean, you're kidding, right? No, I want you to be circumcised. You, your son, all the males in your household. God, tattoos are all the rage. That could be a good sign. No, I want you to be circumcised. And so that's what Abraham did. He was circumcised. Ishmael, all the men in his house were circumcised as a sign that they belonged to God. And God made at that time, a promise. He said, I will make you exceedingly fruitful. I'll make nations of you, and kings shall come from you. Also I give to you and your descendants all the land of Canaan as an everlasting possession. And God said that Sarah would have a child. Now Sarah overheard this, and she laughed. She's like, you're kidding me, right? I'm going to have a child. I'm 90 years old. A little bit late for having a baby. But God reassured her, yes, you're going to have a child. Now, eventually, everything that God promised came to pass. Sarah gave birth to a son named Isaac. And Isaac was the one to whom God gave the same promises that he gave Abraham. But there was a very interesting test to which God put Abraham regarding his son Isaac. And there, Jungle Jim, will pick up next time. Thank you for listening, and may God bless you and this recording. This has been Jungle Jim at your service.